Welcome to this episode of Season 5 of The Common Bridge, where policy and current events are discussed in a fiercely nonpartisan manner. The host, Richard Helppie, is a philanthropist, entrepreneur, and political analyst who has reached over 4 million listeners, viewers, and readers around the world. With our surging growth in audience and subscriptions, The Common Bridge continues to expand its reach. The show is available on the Substack website and the Substack app. Simply search for The Common Bridge. You can also find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. The Common Bridge draws guests and audiences from across the political spectrum, and we invite you to become a free or paid subscriber on your favorite medium.
Hey, Rich, a Monday morning of historical proportions, right?
And right on the day, this is July 15th.
Yes.
And when we were going to do a mailbag, and really interesting what might be in the mailbag these days.
I know, and I've got the mailbag ready to roll, but we're going to push this aside for a second because, as everybody knows, on Saturday night, President Trump was shot. I was at a wedding, and it just sort of stopped everything. Or it rolled around, hey, president got shot, or not president, but Trump got shot. And that became the conversation. Where were you when you heard it, and what were your thoughts, and how did that unroll for you? Did you get on TV? How did that go for you that evening?
Well, it was a Saturday. I had moved 5 yards of dirt with the help of a couple other guys, and I was filthy and it was really hot. And so I was sitting in my living room, and I got a notification. I can't remember which news source it came across that Trump had fallen. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I flipped on the television. I went to CNN, I think. They're typically quick about this thing. And I saw the president, reaching for his ear. And I heard, the pop, 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 pop. And I thought, well, somebody got a .22 pistol up close to him. And, and he gets up and he's bleeding, and he is escorted out. And then of course we found out what it was, and that was really scary because as they're taking him out, one of the Secret Service agents wasn't even tall enough to cover his face.
Yeah. I
mean, he was just shot at toward the head, and the shooter or shooters missed him. And some of the Secret Service looked like the Keystone Cops. I mean, it was utterly ridiculous.
Well, Trump's a big guy. Was he 6'3"? So, I mean, you got to get somebody that's going to cover that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just physics, right? You need a bigger body to cover a smaller body. But also, anybody that's ever handled a pistol, you better be able to holster and unholster that gun. If you can't put it back in your holster, you're deemed a threat. You have a weapon out.
And what did you see that I didn't see? What happened? What are you referring to?
There was a female agent in front, left-handed, had her service weapon out. She was kind of spinning around like, what do I do? Where do I go? She couldn't reholster her weapon. Okay.
Oh, I gotta watch that.
Yeah, and those weapons, the holsters they're stiff. They're made out of Kevlar or some kind of plastic. And they clip back in. They're designed to be able to draw out and put back in. And I'm thinking, oh my God, did they put the most junior staff on? Because, again, anybody that's handled a pistol understands that. And then it was revealed that, the shooter, and I turned to my wife and I said, they're going to find out this guy has no military training. Because once it came out that the AR-15, which is a highly accurate rifle, you could shoot from that distance with steel sights and put it in a pattern the size of your palm.
Wow.
And you would have gone for a body shot and then moved up. It was like just a confluences of circumstances. And of course, the slight turn of his head that caused that bullet not to go through his brain, but go through the ear.
Yeah, so we were looking at it on the web, and for a full half hour after that shooting on CNN, they had online, it had a picture of Trump bleeding from the ear, but the cut line said an incident at Trump's speech had him removed from the stage.
Yeah.
And I quickly went over, because you and I were common bridge. So we try to look at both and every kind of news angle we could see. I went over to Fox and they called it "President's been shot"
Yeah.
right away. And I'm wondering, was CNN trying not to alarm anybody? What do you think that was about?
Well,
Because we were all talking like, why is it an incident? He's bleeding.
Yeah. Well, it's one of two things. Either they didn't know, okay, and they were being cautious.
But the cut line, he's bleeding.
Yeah. Or they went to where the established media go all the time now. What's the narrative? It's not what are the facts. It's what's the narrative. And, so you could look at it in a harsh light that they were afraid to go against the narrative. Wow. Hey, I'm sure had it been President Biden, it would have been within minutes, extreme right-wing gunmen are shooting at the president or something like that.
Yeah.
But we don't know how they made that decision or who puts the headlines up. We know they got it wrong. They got it terribly wrong. And, we've learned that they're not accountable, which, of course, why people are leaving them in droves. And, Brian, look what's happening to our audience. I mean, we're gaining, I think in the last 30 days, like 1,000 subscribers a day.
Yeah.
I mean, people are either waking up or they're becoming emboldened. But look, if you run this back, what's going on? Remember, July 11th was supposed to be the day that the judge in the so-called hush money case, which isn't about hush money, it's about business records, that they managed to extrapolate into a crime that they managed to extrapolate into 34 counts. Trump was supposed to be sentenced July 11th.
Yeah. And
they moved it back. So we thought July 11th was going to be about, was Trump going to be trying to prep for the convention from a jail cell? And instead, what we have on July 11th, we had President Biden giving a press conference, a highly orchestrated press conference with NATO, an attempt to say he's all there. And I watched that, of course, start to finish. And look, I think he tried, and I think they prepped him, and he did better than he did in the debate, save for calling Kamala Harris Vice President Trump. Kind of a big miss there. But he just looked like a guy that had been overserved at the bar, trying to drive home real careful so the cops wouldn't see him. So he's driving 5 miles an hour.
That's a great analogy.
I mean, they're being cruel to this man. And he clearly was coached or got to the point when he got confused and you could see his train of thought drifting off. It was, anyways. So the story was, what are the Democrats going to do? And there was a lot said about that and a lot written about that. How are they going to get out of this? And I don't know what they do now. So now 48 hours later, we're not talking about what are the Democrats doing. We're talking about that the former president, current nominee, is being shot at. There's a lot of loose ends, like how did this guy get to the site? How did he get up on the roof? Where was the handy ladder? How did nobody not see him? How did they let the president get on the stage when a police officer had gone up, seen the guy, and gotten down after the guy pointed a rifle at him?
Yeah. Well, you've heard the audience accounts because everybody's got a phone. Everybody was filming because that's what you do in those if you're in the crowd. And they've got audio and guys going, I see a guy on a roof over there. There's a guy on a roof over there with a gun. There's a guy over there with a gun on the roof. And it was a minute and a half before he was shot. And they're trying to tell police officers, what about that guy on the roof over there? And it's just astonishingly bad for the head of the Secret Service. I think the people on the ground just react to gunshots. I think they're reactionary people, but the planning and the what had to happen at that site beforehand, I think is really wild negligence, amazingly wild negligence.
And in a true administration, the head of the Secret Service would have tendered her resignation to the president, and the president would have accepted it. Because there's got to be accountability. And this notion that the Democrats are trying to push right now, which is, hey, don't worry about who the president is. We have a whole team. In other words, there's no deep state. And if you remember in Orwell's classic, is Big Brother a real person? Is he a real man like you or me? Because he never aged, right? Never changed. Was always right, always in the present. And I'm thinking, are people not able to see this? And, and then we get President Biden comes out yesterday, and I'll give him credit. He did call Donald Trump, and in a weird circumstance, did not call him Hitler, but called him Donald, and said, want to see you get a full recovery. And then he said, we don't know where this violence comes from, but then they take down all their campaign ads. And so, when you spend months, and President Biden has done it, starting with his speech in Philadelphia, or continuing it, and I've written about that multiple times, dividing the country, attacking the voters of the other person, smearing Donald Trump, one hoax after another, and then I don't know where this gunman came from. Come on. And you're basically, it's an admission when you take down your campaign because of this horrible event, then yeah, you're culpable. And I watched
some of the memes have been wild. 24 hours before Biden, and Pelosi, we can't elect Trump. He's Hitler. 24 hours later, thoughts and prayers to Hitler.
Yeah, right. Exactly right. Imagine if you're calling strategy for the Democratic National Committee right now. How do you back out the smears and the Hitlerizing? And by the way, Brian, this is 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:46 Eastern time on Monday, July 15th, when we're recording this. The Florida case for records has been dismissed.
Yeah, about 45 minutes ago. Yeah.
That special prosecutor was unconstitutionally appointed. And, you see the photos coming out of that, like all of a sudden, here's a sign that says, top secret here, top secret. And it reminded me, do you remember during the Iraq invasion, Saddam said, oh, they're bombing a baby milk factory. And then there was video of people in blue coveralls that said in English, baby milk factory on the back. And that's what it looked like to me, the evidence in the classified documents. It's like Baghdad Bob, baby milk factory right here. And then they were making chemical weapons or something. And then all of a sudden it's top secret stuff right here. See, here's a sign that says it's top secret. And today, we still don't know what allegedly Trump took, if it's any different from any Presidential Records Act case, which has not been fully adjudicated. We still don't know what Joe Biden took as vice president, and we don't know whether he gave it back because we don't know what it was. But people have been whipped into this frenzy and into this hysteria, and now potentially the end result has been an assassination attempt on the probable next president of the United States. And again, I've been harshly critical of Trump. I have been pleading and writing and publishing about, can we get better choices? And I've done that consistently. My recent column, Kamala Harris for President, lays it out. Dean Phillips on our show twice. We have three bad actors in this. It's called the Democratic National Committee, the Republican National Committee, and the established media ecosystem. And this is time now. People are finding their voice. In the background, the WPATH thing that was supposedly the backbone of transgender medicine has been exposed as an idealistic fraud. And Gerald Posner has been writing about that, and amongst other ones, so that really extreme narrative is just coming unraveled.
People are tired of it too.
But
Remember,
let me tell you,
but I was going to say, you got a lot of hate mail when you pointed out some months ago when it was Hune, I believe, that did the interview of Biden about his classified documents in his garage, and then he concluded, the independent investigator concluded, that those two, he had those illegally. But we can't try this guy because he's a confused older man who can't remember much. Do you remember the vitriol that you got?
oh,
We got
absolutely.
it in mail. We got it in email. How dare you? How dare you say that about the president?
Right.
And it's like we're not seeing what we're seeing.
Well, at the same time, the President Biden hiding the audio tapes of the interviews with her, which would have cleaned up the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this is it. Look, people around President Biden know he's not firing on all cylinders.
They've known it for 3 years, Rich.
Yeah, the people that are supposedly reporting the fourth estate, they know it too.
That's right.
Right? And all of a sudden, here it is. And in unison, they all act like they're surprised. And then they go, well, why don't people have trust in the institution? Why aren't they trusting the media? I know. If you challenge what we're saying, you're a purveyor of disinformation, misinformation, malinformation. You're a misogynist, racist, transphobic, xenophobic hater. And in fact, if you said you didn't like either Trump or Biden, you were, quote, a double hater.
That's right.
Not a reasonable person saying, give me a better choice. Right?
Now they're picking on your common bridge. That's a hating bridge, evidently.
Yeah, right.
They want to talk about it.
Exactly. And basically, I'm saying, look, can we look at the facts here? All right. The fact is, Joe Biden's shelf life is over. He can't do it. George Stephanopoulos, who was eyeball to eyeball with him on what was supposed to be a 90-minute interview, turned out to be 35.
22.
On the street. And a guy, and he says, Biden can't do a full 4 years. And that was, oh my goodness, what a mistake I made. Telling the truth as a so-called journalist is now considered a mistake.
Right. Why did he have to come out as a journalist and apologize for something that he said? Like, I shouldn't have said that. I made a mistake. But that's
because he's no longer part. He's no longer part of that ecosystem that's been covering it up. Jeez. Now, the really scary thing is, where do we go from here? The people that are, saying, let's, what do they call it? Oh, save our democracy by censoring people, attacking our opponents, exercising lawfare, weaponizing the judicial system. They're going to burn it to the ground. It's like in Vietnam. We had to destroy the village in order to save it.
Yeah.
All right. It's crazy, and people need to call that out. Now, I want to make sure I am clear about this. The Republicans need to get their act together. Okay. They need to tell us who they are, what they are, how they're going to govern. And just like the Democrats have muzzled their nuttier people on their fringes, the Republicans got to muzzle their nuttier fringes. Okay. They've got to be able to do that. But they're not. And, the sad thing is, nobody's talking about how Donald Trump conducted his time when he was in the Oval Office. Okay. He's not a guy that gets up and, reads his daily briefing. He's not a guy that is thoughtful. It's like whatever pops into his head. That's not what you want as a CEO of anything. Okay.
Yeah. The churn of his Oval Office was frightening as well.
Yeah. And so, like, I was talking to one of my nephews over the 4th of July, and I said, yeah, we got a choice between a guy who from the seat of his pants and the other guy that probably shits his pants. The two choices.
Oh, no.
And like, that was considered mean, but now people are looking at him. And even if you look at President Biden, when he came out on Saturday to talk about the attempted assassination, and when he came out yesterday, Sunday the 14th, to ask people to cool it, he's out of breath.
Yeah.
Okay. For the kindness, let this man have a dignified retirement.
Mhm.
I don't know. Again, I don't know how, because I don't know who the Democrats could bring up that would be legitimatized, who doesn't have a better opportunity later.
Okay, I'm gonna go back in your show a little bit longer. You talked earlier about having Dean Phillips on twice. He was a great guest. We found him really compelling. In fact, after it was over, you and I talked for about 15 minutes off the air about, now there's a guy, there's a guy who's CEO of a company. He did it for the right reasons, sat across the kitchen table from his daughters and said, hey, I'm not going to sit here and watch this go by. I'm going to run. And he was not only laughed out of the room by the Democrats, but denied, and these are the people who want to protect your democracy, denied their voters, any voter, to choose him, to see, no, we'd like to see him. No, they did not have primaries in Florida. They shut down the primary system. Those are your protectors of democracy right there.
Yeah, and an interesting thing going over on left-wing pundits on X, they're saying you can't do some of the things that James Carville and others have suggested, like a kind of a lightning round celebrity moderated playoff of the 6 or 8 people that might be available to be the president, because that doesn't involve the voters. I'll spit my coffee out. Like, you didn't put the voters into your primary system. What are you talking about?
They anointed Biden right off the bat. I mean,
yeah,
if you
exactly
Dean
right.
Phillips,
It's like 2 people you don't want to be. Maybe it's the same person. The person that thought rigging the primaries was a great idea, and the person that thought, hey, let's just go with the nastiest attack ads we can and call the other guy Hitler. I mean, like, this stuff is not working. Now, by the way, they have a very stoked and very easily manipulated base in the Democratic Party. They've been told now for years, hate Trump and hate everything Republican. And they're the people that like look at Occupy Democrats and the other 98% and some of those notorious disinformation sites and believe it. They're the people that are getting amped up. Project 2025, that's going to kill us. It's like, oh my God. I mean, I remember the John Birch Society and their attempts to impact politics. And guess what? I could do this as Biden. Guess what? There's always been far right and far left people putting out policy statements and saying if they get in office, they'll do that. You see? That probably wasn't a very good imitation.
No, that wasn't bad. I liked it.
Okay. Hey,
so Brian, we have the convention coming up. We got to wrap this up.
All right. So let me just rat-a-tat about the convention.
Sure.
Biggest change. Nikki Haley has been invited to the convention and given a speaking spot. And the sad but twisted outcome of this weekend, Trump's base is so motivated right now. He could do the thing that would give him a landslide, which would be to pick Nikki Haley as his vice president.
Do you think he does it though? Because I'm hearing there were black Cadillacs, 7 of them at J.D. Vance's place yesterday in Ohio. Like, I don't know if it was to protect him or what, but that was the buzz coming out and thinking, well, is that going to be him? It's interesting.
Right. I guess we'll all find out together.
Yeah.
But, like they're talking about, Marco Rubio apparently would have to resign his Senate seat and then declare his residency in Virginia, where I'm guessing, I don't know this for sure, that he has a place there to serve in the Senate. Or apparently, according to Kevin McCarthy, he spends a lot of time in Nevada and he declared residency in Nevada.
Right. Didn't McCarthy also say that Trump would just change his residency to his New York place? That gets Trump out of there, but Rubio, still, point taken, would have to.
New York's not going to let him back in. Okay. All right. Yeah. Kathy Hoshel's on the phone right now. Hey, DMV, do not give that man a driver's license.
He'll wear a big fake mustache. They won't know who it is.
They're not letting him come back in, So, that's over. So, the smears failed, the lawfare failed. And the Democrats were coming around to saying maybe we need to do this at the ballot box. And then there was an attempted assassination. It's good. We're living history right now. It's going to be a wild time. And Brian, maybe another time we get back to see what's in the mailbag, provided we have an audience after this thing. But the audience is growing.
One guy called in. No, I think you're okay. Your audience has been exploding.
We should call and do a live thing one time.
Oh, we should do that. I think that would be great. I'll hook it up.
That'd be fun. All right. Anything else we got to talk about today?
That's it. I mean, if we get into the mailbag, we're going to get into the mailbag, but let's do that a different time because I think the questions are going to be different. So,
all right. Well, let me do this. And with our producer and today's interviewer, Brian Kruger, this is your host, Rich Helppie, signing off on The Common Bridge.
Thanks for joining us on The Common Bridge. Subscribe to The Common Bridge on Substack.com or use their Substack app where you can find more interviews, columns, videos, and nonpartisan discussions of the day. Just search for The Common Bridge. You can also find The Common Bridge on Mission Control Radio or your Radio Garden app.